bow. We'll give them 30 arrows and basically send them on their way to go and try and finish escape. And then the rest of the game from standard mode plays about the same as it used to.
All right, we already see Jet asking for Blue Cane height. Blue Cane is, I don't know, I would say it's personally my least favorite item. But you guys had to add another item. I think it was 10 bombs just to make sure that they could get through it if they did pick up bombs. Is that correct?
Well, the game technically will always refill your bombs at Uncle if bombs is what you're meant to do escape with. The reason we added the 10 bomb item was to have a kind of sign item in the logic that it said, all right, if this is an item that you can use to defeat enough enemies and escape. So it was more of a logical reason to have it in there than an actual requirement.
No, that makes sense. And Jet gets his wish. Blue Cane hype it is. We have the Cane of Burna. They're going to have to be careful with their magic strats unless they're going to use some sort of save and quit strats.
Absolutely, and right off the bat, Jet gets a bomb drop from some of the green guards. It's okay to use some magic early here because you'll be able to pick up the 2 magic pots right below that chest. But also they find 3 bombs, which is the other big thing our runners are looking for during the escape sequence.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of runners waste, 30 seconds to a minute trying to farm up bombs in the sewers, haven't getting it. So getting the bombs early might put us at that right around that 6-minute time to get through the entire escape portion, not having to waste time farming those bombs up.
Absolutely, and the biggest thing our runners have to worry about from here to the end is their usage. Every time you use the Cane of Burner initially, it takes 1/8 of your magic bar away, and then it slowly drains from there on. So you just have to be careful that you don't end up using too much of it. If you do, you'll be forced to either kill yourself or save and quit, and that'll refill your magic based on a few different constraints. If you were at the Uncle before, you'll get a full refill, and if you're at Zelda's cell, you'll get, I believe, a 1/4 refill, and the same if you have to start at the Mantle.
Jet getting a little bit fortunate there. He got a full magic pot drop, so he's got a little bit more magic going into this last end than BadmoonZ does.
Absolutely. Magic is actually one of the easier things to get through escape with, because once you get past the first kind of brunt of the game, and you get into the dark sewer area, there's about 4 magic pots you can pick up along the way to kind of refill yourself back up to a good amount of magic. And it looks like we found the vanilla blue boomerang hanging out in its chest, which is kind of rare and I like it. It's my favorite boomerang.
I think it's everyone's favorite boomerang, and I understand why, but, when I was a 6-year-old kid playing this game, I think I love the red boomerang a little bit more, so soft spot in my heart. And a sword, what?
Well, it looks like Zelda was being kind and thought, you know what, I don't think you have to get through the rest of this. Get me out of here, and here's the sword to get us the rest of the way.
Now, I gotta say, this might be confirmation bias from all the seeds I've watched, but it always feels like even though you get a weapon from Uncle of some sort, there's some other weapon that you end up finding through the escape sequence. And again, that might just be confirmation bias, but is there any difference in weapons being dropped in escape afterwards?
No, not at all. Although you're going to certainly be more, you'll notice it more often when it does happen, which is the part of confirmation bias. But it's also, there's, kind of with the other logic change we made where we kind of downplayed dungeons a little bit in this version, it just tends to be that you're going to find more things in escape and the overworld than you would have before.
All right, so both runners getting back to the top floor right around the 4-minute mark, so they're both on pace. Jet with a little bit of an edge, but in Randomizer, this kind of edge isn't such a big deal. In NMG, we'd already be talking about Jet being in the lead, but Randomizer, anything can happen, and minutes and leads can just completely disappear based on one decision.
Absolutely. And it could be an early decision that leads somebody down a long path that they weren't expecting to go down, or something else entirely, like a late decision that is just enough, kind of like when they're both climbing Ganon's tower, picking the left side or the right side could be enough to sway the entire game.
All right, Jet picking up literacy. We have the Book of Mudora. Interesting. That could affect their early routing. I know a lot of people end up going off to the right side early from Link's house for the dam area. Might check to see if people go left to route in desert into that early routing just because of that.
I could see someone potentially going over there, but you're only guaranteed 2 items going off to the desert with what our runners currently have. Might not be as profitable as hitting up the mini Moldorum cave with 5 and continuing on to the Ice Rod cave, with the potential use of fake flipper shortly thereafter to pick up the hobo or head up to Ursora. But it is certainly a play that would be different than what your opponent's probably going to do, and that alone might be a Benegame choice to choose. I'm pretty sure we haven't seen the map in Escape. We'll see if either of our runners did the count and end up, unless the... did we see the map? I don't think we did.
I don't think we did. I was going to say the same thing. You beat me to the punch. So the Sanctuary chest is actually part of the whole escape sequence. So if the map isn't anywhere else, we can guarantee that the map is going to be here, and you can save just a second or two not opening this one.
And BadmoonZ did do a check to make sure he didn't have the map, so he's going to go ahead and walk out. And Jet did a good count and realized that he did not pick up the map yet. I think a good routing choice from the beginning, though, is heading off towards the Lumberjack to see if you're going to be required to kill Aghanim, as well as just getting a few things. Kakariko is usually a value city, if you will, place that you can just pick up a whole bunch of items. And as well, we might see, depending on how frisky our runners are, a quick check on the pedestal.
That would be interesting. That's not something that I think most people think about routing in this early, because having the book this early is just a little bit ridiculous, but it's a possibility. We might see that. It'd be interesting.
And we go ahead and see in the Lumberjack just 3 bombs, probably not worth Aghanim yet. That's actually a relief for our runners. That means in their mind they might be required to head there later if they need it for Dark World access, but it's certainly not for an item.
We did get an early map check there by BadmoonZ, and to throw another wrench into that, do I go over to Desert or not? That is a pendant dungeon. So if for whatever reason they pick up, well, there's the Moon Pearl for Jet. If they pick up some other items, for example, their fire source and power gloves, thinking that they could route in to get an early crystal, not so for the desert with that blue pendant there.
That's right. And Jet so far checked 2 of our poultry prizes. There are 3 different prize packs you can get out of the poultry. The mid-tier one that they got out after Escape was just 5 arrows, and the lowest tier was, I believe, single rupees. So not much in the prize packs, and the hoarders themselves are just throwing out 5 arrows. So probably not going to be doing any farming off of them either.
So far, no need to do any farming, but anything can happen at this point in the seed. It's still so early that literally anything can happen at this point.
I will say I'm usually really happy if a hoarder's throwing out 20 rupees.
Oh, and we see the hook shot, which is another one of our key items there in Blind's basement. That's going to be a nice pickup. Could see maybe early Death Mountain, be able to get that whole lot of value up in Death Mountain. And there's the Power Glove as well.
Speaking of, that gives them a bit of a sequence break access to Death Mountain at this moment. Without the lamp, they can still go through Old Man's Cave to get up to Death Mountain. They have a sword which makes it considerably easier to navigate through there. So you can tell where Link is through the movement. Might be really worthwhile if you're trying to get an edge on your opponent.
Sequence breaks feel like they have kind of outsized value. When you can do that and still keep track of everything, it certainly benefits you, because when you find something up there, you can eliminate other possibilities for the item you sequence broke for.
Certainly, although Death Mountain's a little special because even if you do get up there without the lamp, there's still a chance that the flute was available to you at some point prior to that, so you don't know that for sure, so you're kind of in a iffy sequence break mode.
And I think that's the best purchase I've ever seen from that bottle vendor, giving you the Cane of Samaria. So sub 10 minutes, double canes. I like it.
Certainly good. And Canis Amari is one of those items you look for. It's not always required, but it's generally required with 2 dungeons absolutely needing it to get through them.
It would be really kind of a low percent chance that we wouldn't need it simply because it would require both Misery Mire and Turtle Rock not only being pendants, but not having anything in them at that point in time.
Absolutely. More for Turtle Rock than Misery Mire, but certainly. And it looks like BadmoonZ is doing a quick check on one of the NPCs.
Oh, talking to the NPCs. These are great. I really do enjoy these.
And speaking of which, the race game having our flute, meaning going up to Death Mountain, no longer a sequence break whatsoever, might actually push Jet into going just straight up to Death Mountain from here instead of doing the South Shore. This is a big decision point, I think, for the early game.
Absolutely. So, Vitorp, I gotta ask, what would you do in this position? When you have the flute, you can follow the seed that seems to be pointing you up to Death Mountain, or you can keep on traditional routing and go to the South Shore area. Which would you do at this point?
In all honesty, if you really want to know what I would do, I would go and activate the flute and immediately fly to Desert. It's not the right play, it's the fun play.
Okay, I was gonna say, it's like, really?
But
you're right, it's fun.
But if the goal is to try and achieve the most bang for the buck, I would probably go up to Death Mountain first. You have 7 locations, and it looks like Jet's doing a little talking as well.
I sense some shenanigans going on before the race, these two talking.
At the very least, you're certainly going to activate the flute as soon as possible. It gives you the most mobility out of the game that you're going to see. Drops you off at 8 different locations around the world, and it's huge for speed of navigation in the game. It makes going out to Ice Rod Cave a lot less of a kind of out-of-the-way thing.
Well, and I think that it's just one of those things that as speedrunners, anything that helps us navigate the world around just benefits it all. And Jet actually going ahead and doing the South Shore route, fluting down to the dam, and using his hookshot glitch to go ahead and get through. That's a heads-up play by Jet there.
Certainly, and it looks like BadmoonZ is doing the exact same thing. This is all, I mean, it's a good play. You have a good weapon to go beat up a bunch of mini Moldorms off to the side of here. It's a few quick locations to check, and worst case, your opponent's probably doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's hard to say what's a good and bad play at this point in time. We just don't know if it's going to pay off or not. Interesting to see, let me see, both runners going ahead and picking up the full heart piece. We have 7 hearts and blue mail. The quality of these runners, that could be good for the entire race for both of them.
I think that they would certainly be willing to do the run, but anytime they see a full heart that's not out of the way, like too far out of the way, I'm sure they're going to pick it up. It's, you know, it's good to be good with low hearts, but it's also better to not have to worry about it.
Silvers, Bombos, oh my gosh, this is Mushroom for a fetch quest. This is just a stacked mini Moldorm. Not necessarily a ton of progression per se, but things that are certainly going to help out as we go, and we'll see if that mushroom ends up benefiting them at all.
I have a feeling at least one of our runners might hold on to the mushroom for a little bit. It's certainly not Jet. He's going to get rid of it, but when you have the red cane in tow, there's a chance you could utilize a glitch in the game which allows you to use all of your magic and then the red cane and immediately switch to the mushroom, which makes it act like you have the powder. It's something that, if there is an item at the Magic Bat, highly unlikely, but there's still, you know, a chance there's something there, could really put you ahead of your opponent.
Yeah, we've seen an increase in using that particular glitch where that people will do a save and quit and then do that particular mushroom strat, and then at that point in time they'll you know, do a hard reset if that ends up being nothing. Or, okay, I'm confusing myself. They'll do a save and quit, do the mushroom, and if it's nothing, then they'll do a hard reset so they can save that mushroom to do that particular glitch. Kind of an interesting strategy. I don't know if I've seen it pay off at any point in this tournament, but I've seen increased use so far.
Absolutely. I guess the worst case scenario is if you end up, if our runners had read, say, the Master Sword pedestal and Soul Powder on it, you would certainly be holding on to that mushroom as long as you can.
It'll certainly be interesting because neither runner did the save quit trick. If Powder is on the pedestal, I think there would be some regret there from both of these runners.
Absolutely. But it looks like both of our runners are pretty much following the exact same route, doing a little darkroom navigation to go collect the old man. Jet got an arrow upgrade there, sees a quarter heart inside of Spectacle Rock Cave. BadmoonZ is now about to go pick up his old man. It looks like he's transitioning and getting him right now before he heads back to drop him off on Death Mountain.
Yeah, this is kind of what we were both talking about. They went to the South Shore, got the dam, got the mini Moldorm, routed around a little bit, and then right up here to... this is still in sequence. Only the old man was really sequence broken at this point in time.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this is the really kind of solid play by both of these runners. I'm a little disappointed, I'll be honest, that we haven't seen any sort of route divergence, unfortunately.
Well, if it's paying off, why mess with it? Because Chet just picked up the Titan's Mitt, which gives him access to the Dark World. So Aghanim still could be required if both the hammer and the flippers are in East Dark World, but the chances of that are pretty low.
You don't happen to have those tables memorized, do you?
Certainly not.
I tried to open them up and I just had a brain, aneurysm, I think, a little bit, and I was like, nope, not gonna try to memorize these.
Nope, I play the game to play the game and have fun with it. So I think I think the data is interesting, but I'm not about the metagame so much. That's why I'm willing to go flute off to the desert area.
It's all about the show, isn't it? Just making sure it's a good show for everyone.
Absolutely.
So one thing to point out, Jet did pick up the Titan's Mitt, so I think both these runners will go ahead and route in their dark Death Mountain access at the same time. Jet doing the slow Spiral Cave routing, but then he'll be able to go right into Super Bunny Cave and Hookshot Cave right away. We're at sub 20 minutes doing Dark Death Mountain.
Absolutely, and this is, routing-wise, just amazing. This is, you're not going to have to come back to Death Mountain for a while after this.
About the only reason you would come back is if, I can see if you got Hammer or Mirror to do Tower of Hera, but you can kind of hold off on that unless you're out of other options. Turtle Rock is kind of far out of the way with everything else you need access for, so still a good spot for both Jet and BadmoonZ for this particular seed.
They'll also be able to pick up some key information. I don't think we've looked at the Dark World map yet, but it's always important to know what the entry for Turtle Rock and the entry for Misery Mire is. This will give them a good opportunity to then know if they are going to have to pick up more medallions and keep searching for them. Easily one of the hardest parts of Go mode is not being entirely sure what all is required in the seed.
And I feel like that's the third 300 rupee count that Jet and BadmoonZ have gotten on Death Mountain between the Light and Dark World. They are well positioned for Zora once they get that way. Zora, Monkey Money, everything at this point in time. They do not have to worry at this point.
Absolutely. We got a map check here. We have Skullwoods being our 5/6 crystal. And it looks like Ice and Swamp may not be required.
Ice Palace is that green pendant, and Turtle Rock is Bombo, so they may not have to go hunting anymore.
Absolutely. As soon as they find a hammer, they can go in there and check one chest.
What are we dealing with here, Jet? We have a sub 20-minute mirror shield and the fire rod.
Okay, they can check a lot more chests in Turtle Rock now as soon as they get that hammer.
What strikes me...
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the immediate next play to do would be heading off to Skullwoods.
Seems like Jet's going to be following your advice, at least heading in that direction. What strikes me is that both of these runners have really been able to maximize kind of their chest efficiency. They're hitting all of the major pressure points on where all the chest-dense locations in the overworld have been. No dips into dungeons so far, but man, the overworld has really paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. The only route divergence we've seen at this point is BadmoonZ has checked the Ice Rod Cave. Which also explains the slight behindness of him versus Jet currently. But I think the Skullwoods is absolutely the best place to go. You have a sword, you have the fire rod. You just want to get in there, defeat Moth. That gives you one of the 5/6 crystals. So there's an extra 2 items for you as soon as you believe. Was it Eastern? Was the other one?
Yep, Eastern. So we're waiting on the bow for that.
Right, so just, 1 item for Eastern, and you will get 2 extra items at the Pyramid Ferry.
That red berry trolling Jet a little bit as he sets up his bomb jump to get over here to the big treasure chest. And BadmoonZ looks like he's going right in the same direction. Still no route divergence between either of these runs. Oh, I spoke too soon.
A rather unfortunate death there, in that I don't believe he walked out the front door, so he's going to start way back in the dungeon.
Oh, that's a bit of a misplay by Jet, a rare misplay by Jet, all things considered. And BadmoonZ does pull the lamp out of the treasure chest game in the Village of Outcasts. Both of these runners certainly skilled enough to do dark rooms, but it's certainly nice to be able to have so you can figure out the logic of where you can and can't go at this point in time.
Absolutely, and while most people can do dark rooms, especially these runners, none of them want to do dark rooms. It's not something that you go out of your way to be like, I'm ready to do dark rooms today. So it's also kind of a slight relief to our runners to be like, all right, I know I can just quickly go through every one of these dungeons.
BadmoonZ opting to go south into the Village of Outcasts, found at least the lamp, so he's got a little bit of an advantage here. But Jet is getting ready to clear, I presume, at least clear all of Skullwoods and go ahead and defeat Mothula. How difficult really is Mothula, would you say? Fighter sword, no other real weapons to speak of at this point.
This is going to be quite a fight for Jet. When BadmoonZ goes in there, he'll at least have the lamp, so he'll be able to conserve a fair amount of magic going in to light the torches on the way in. But Jet's pretty much, he's got to do, I think it's 16 slashes with the fighter sword to get through this. That's a lot, especially if Moth runs into any of the spikes, the damage that he's taking gets negated.
I think it's easy to say that BadmoonZ will probably have the easier fight, but if Jet finds anything of value through here, that he will end up having an easier time, or at least will have a little bit of an advantage overall. So we'll see which decision ends up making the most sense.
Absolutely. Well, let's prepare ourselves for what's going to definitely be an interesting fight. It looks like he's going to get a spin in the very beginning, which gets him at least basically 2 hits in for free, but it's actually, he might have gotten a double with that spin. I didn't see if Moth swung back into him afterwards.
Also worth noting, BadmoonZ did pick up half magic in Thieves Town, so as if saving magic wasn't a big enough concern, he already got half magic. Seems like the right decision at this point in time would have been going down to Thieves Town, but that's the nature of Rando.
Absolutely, he's going to have a much easier time fighting Moth. And Jet's certainly doing the one key thing that you should do whenever you're fighting Moth, especially on low health, and that's just patience.
Moth is definitely one of those bosses that patience is difficult to do because he can try you, but Jet with the kill, very clutch. I would expect no less from Jet. Picking up his first crystal in the game at 25 or so, gets his full refill, and he will be off. I imagine he'll be heading south.
Absolutely. He's going to go back in and check the one last item in there. He only found the bug net in this dungeon so far, so he's very interested in finding out what the second item is. And it's always kind of a risky play going into Thieves Town without the hammer, knowing that there's a small chance that there's an item in the big chest. And if that item turns out to be required later, it's a long haul to get back to it for one location.
Absolutely. But with the way this seed has really presented itself to both these runners, I can't imagine that you can really hold off on going into Thieves Town until you have the hammer, at least up to this point in time.
Well, I think for routing, this is the right decision, although one potentially might go off to Hype Cave first to collect a few items first. We have Jet checking out the Mire area, seeing that it's Bombos as well to get into Misery Mire, so our runners are set to get into the dungeons.
That is really kind of amazing. Both the dungeons having Bombos, and it's the only one that we've happened to have, so Ether and Quake can kind of be anywhere, and it really doesn't matter at this point.
Nope, they've become nice to haves. Although I will say this, BadmoonZ, when he flutes over to Mire, can totally full clear Mire. Jet could full clear it as well, but most people really don't want to do the basement in the dark, especially on low health. And then having to fight Vitreous with the fighter's sword, and nothing else really is not a pleasant experience.
I'll say one of the blessings, I think, from having the mirror shield, I mean, even the fire shield at this early stage for BadmoonZ and Jet, blind is a little bit easier when you can block everything with that particular shield. I'm bad, so I like to hunt for it myself, but BadmoonZ with a really nice kill there on blind as well.
I didn't see, did he have both the map and the compass by the end of that?
Yeah, I believe so. I think he was just... I want to say it was just the key he was looking on, so it was locked behind the door.
No, he had the key on the end. So if he has both map and compass, then there's certainly an item in that big chest.
That would be painful.
But I'll keep an eye. Take a look.
That was interesting. We saw the red mail that's up there on the bumper cave ledge. Now I doubt either of these runners are going to go up to get that, but if they happen to be up in that area, maybe. I don't feel like either of them would.
No, I don't think either one of these runners is going to turn around and go back for red mail. At this point, they have blue mail, about 10 hearts. That's pretty comfy for the rest of this run. They're not going to, skip out on too many of the big hearts, maybe, if they're easy, but the red mail is really, at this point, just a super nice to have. And they'll both chalk it up as a waste of time to go get.
Jet, meanwhile, is doing the digging game. So far, nothing. Seems to be a high dig count game for this time around.
Alright, so my guess here is that Jet's going to go off, talk to Stumpy, and then head off to Hype Cave. And then he might consider, depending on what he gets, going back to Misery Mire. Oh, it looks like he's also going to take the frog on a world tour with him.
Absolutely. The part about that is with the Jeremiah World Tour is that immediately after he ends up leaving the hype cave, when he saves and quits, it pretty well locks him in that he can't reroute and do anything else based on what he finds. So he's locking himself in here for the next 2 or 3 minutes.
Right. About the only thing that would potentially change his routing is getting a hammer, and then he might go all the way up to the pyramid and continue on to Catfish. Maybe. That's a whole long way to go.
Catfish is just awkward to route in. It doesn't really matter where it is, though, unfortunately. There's no good way to route that in.
Nope, it's just a matter of if you feel there's something there, when you want to go try and see if it's something worth. All right, I'm thinking Hype Cave's going to be hype.
It feels like it, doesn't it? It's been a while since we've gotten any sort of progression. There's the hammer. And boom! Nightmare! Oh my god, A+. Hype Cave is back.
Absolutely. Now, I think Jet, his save and quit might have been slightly premature. I would have potentially gone either back and checked the South of the Grove location. But that was one heck of a hype cave, guys.
It's been a long time since I've seen a hype cave even remotely in that neighborhood. Hammer by itself would have made it rock solid. Hammer, bow, and mirror? My god.
Okay, I hope BadmoonZ recognized it. Okay, yeah, he realized he didn't light the lower torch. I don't know if I would call this a jet seed chat. The fact that we're 31 minutes in and now finding the hype is Jet would be a little faster than that as a seed.
I mean, we'll take it, absolutely. And we already have one crystal at sub 30 so far for Jet. I think both these runners are in a position where this very well could be a very fast seed, certainly.
Absolutely. And I think Jet here is doing the perfect play, which is go into pod. You'll be able to mirror out and do Eastern immediately after. He might check Sahasrara along the way. There's not really a whole lot of value he could find at Sahasrara other than maybe boots that would help him out in these next 2 dungeons. So, looks like he has his mirror out, so he might be just doing this anyway.
I mean, it's reasonable to go ahead and route all of these together. If you know both Eastern Palace and Pod are crystals, knock everything out of the way. You're going to be routing all of these together. There's nothing to stop you from full clearing everything. This is kind of the ideal setup for Jet here.
Sorry, reading chat. Somebody's saying it's a Jet seed because Jet's playing it.
I mean,
okay.
Technically, yeah.
So something to note, when you return from a mirror warp back from Sahasrara, Kiki doesn't actually, he spawned, but you're still kind of like in the iframe state, so you won't pick him up immediately. You kind of have to wait a second, and then you can go back and snag him.
So it counts, I want to make sure I get this straight, so you have to be able to be hit by an enemy in order for Kiki to start following you?
You know, it's underneath that thing, so I'm not going to say one way or the other.
Sure, we'll go with it.
Alright, Jet decides he wants to just go immediately up the right-hand side of Pod. I think this is a fine play. If he thinks about his key counts, he knows that they're required 4 keys before the falling bridge, and he might be able to skip opening a few locations depending on what he finds at the end of this side.
One thing that I think chat points out that is really interesting that we don't see in a ton of seeds, flippers may or may not be required at all. Both Ice Palace and Swamp Palace, which require the flippers to get into or complete both pendants. So this may be one of those really unusual seeds where we may never see flippers.
Absolutely. The only way that we would need them is if there was something at the Waterfall Ferry or on Zora's Ledge at this point, or if there was something in one of those 2 dungeons that was required. Looks like Jet picked up the cape. We'll see if he uses that to collect the red mail, although I don't think he will.
Nah, 11 hearts at this point in time, he's in a good shape.
Yeah. And BadmoonZ hopefully gonna head off down to Hype Cave and get his game really on fire here. Probably I would guess he would do a very similar route to what Jet's doing, where he just pops straight into Pod and Eastern.
And that vanilla big key chest just with another key. Lots of keys to be found. I think 6 total in Pod, correct?
Yes, there are a total of 6, and you're guaranteed to find 4 of them before the Falling Bridge, if the bow is locking any of them, I believe. I think is how it ends up working out. And then going from there, it's a total of 6, so you can kind of, when you get to the very back, actually determine whether or not you need to open up the Harmless Hellway, which is the area with the 3 spikes kind of going back and forth. Basically, you just need to make sure that you would have 1 key to go down to Helmsor, and you should be fine. To avoid the key for a key thing. It looks like because Jet has the big key, he's going to go ahead up and set up the hammer yump here, the double-bombed hammer yump. He got himself on mirror, so he's ready to mirror out. He's very much in NMG state right now. Pulls it off relatively well. Just a few pause buffers, but or menu buffers, I should say. Not getting too much in this area, though. BadmoonZ picking up the frog, but not continuing on to Hype Cave. This is actually going to kind of hurt him a little. At some point, though, he'll hopefully realize that his only path is to basically go through that one Dark World portal and get down there. Alright, so if Jet finds only 1 key here, which he will, he should know that the Harmless Hellway has a key in it and it's not worth going into. So he's going to go ahead and head off straight to Helmsor King.
Absolutely solid item counting by Jet going through here. Saves quite a bit of time when you know your key counts and item counts.
Absolutely.
Looks like BadmoonZ is going to be following in the exact same direction. I gotta say, it feels like it's linear because they both seem to be running in the same direction, but
well, there's a huge difference here in that BadmoonZ hasn't been to Hype Cave yet, so he's just kind of going into Eastern because he's not sure where to go right now. And he figures that there may be some progression in Eastern that he can get. And hopefully, for his sake, he doesn't find anything. We basically need all signs to point him towards going back into the Dark World and going to the south side. That would end up being the best thing that could happen for him in this case.
it's rare where we can honestly say that the best thing to happen is he finds nothing, but it's really true. I mean, that hype cave is just an absolute treasure trove. I mean, I'm just a little bit flabbergasted at how much progression and how many different ways we can do everything after that particular hype cave.
I'm actually looking at this. I think the only progression item he could find in here that would actually do anything for him would be the boots. Everything else he could find of value would not lead him in any new direction. And the boots would probably just speed things up. He would check the bonk rocks, and that's about it.
Well, and the other issue to really take into consideration is whatever he finds here in Eastern Palace, we know Jet's going to be able to get almost immediately. So BadmoonZ really hasn't done anything, unfortunately, up to this point in time that would give him any sort of advantage over Jet. He's a little bit behind, at least in the the linear sort of pathing that he's done, Quake isn't going to help him, unfortunately. Jet does find the first bottle on Helmasaur King. I can't believe that's our first bottle for the seed.
Absolutely. Sometimes they come late.
But BadmoonZ, at this point in time, unfortunately, needs to make a play on something Jet hasn't done yet. And with as many items that Jet has, he just has so much access to the world. It's going to be more and more difficult for BadmoonZ to make that sort of play that he needs to get back in this.
Well, I have a strong feeling if it does come down to anything, it's going to come down to our Ice Rod. And that's really the one big item that's going to kind of separate this for our runners. It's the only one that we're sure is required from here to the end, and can literally be anywhere in the game. Hopefully, for BadmoonZ, we don't find it in Eastern.
Ice Rod would certainly point him up into the direction of Turtle Rock, which would be incredibly unfortunate because we know none of the other items he's hoping to find is going to be up there. I mean, he doesn't have Hammer, though. He can't even get into Turtle Rock.
Exactly. Turtle Rock is a non-starter. The only place he has left for him, depending on how he's thinking, he's going to check behind Sahashala, and then he might be considering the Purple Chest quest. But hopefully, when he does the Purple Chest, he thinks, you know what? I really ought to go and check South Dark World.
This is a point in time where I kind of worry that the meme of Hype Cave is the new Nope Cave, and it doesn't ever have any progression, even though it has 5 treasure chests. I worry that's affecting BadmoonZ's routing decisions. Because, yes, Hype Cave has had issues in the recent history that it hasn't had any progression, but wow, the value here is just staggering.
Well, it could also be that he's just not considering the hop down from the Kakariko portal as being a valuable move. Every now and again, we sometimes forget certain things. But it looks like he's going to go do an Agina check. So yeah, he's dredging. Oh, he's going to go all the way into desert. That's fair. But what he really needs to do is get into Hype Cave. Although, see, there could be some huge boon here. He goes into desert and he finds the Ice Rod. He'll be in go mode the moment he hits Hype Cave. Jet
That's true.
will still be scouring the world looking for that Ice Rod as an option, something that could happen.
It's important to note that we did have access to Desert Palace really from pretty early. Now, we still don't have boots necessarily, and there's the big key, so he's going to head over, check what's on the torch to see if boots are going to be required for at least those 2 treasure chests over there. And it looked like just a bottle. So one of the 2 items in desert is the bottle. Not necessarily a good thing. I think this is going to be our key. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what we want to do is we want to hope and pray that we find an item on the right-hand side.
Pretty much. I think it would be horrible for Jet and for this race at this point in time if there's not the Ice Rod over here. Item at bare minimum, but Ice Rod would absolutely put BadmoonZ right into this.
Absolutely. And also, we don't want to find the map and compass over here so that BadmoonZ continues on to go kill Lanmo. Jet cleaning up the Armos with silver arrows. Pretty straightforward fight. Shoot your 6 arrows, collect your crystal, move on with your day.
Easiest fight in the game. Silver's Armos with no ice patches underneath your feet. Unfortunately, BadmoonZ finds both the compass and the map in those 2 treasure chests, so I'm worried he's going to route over and pick up or kill Landmolus, which, I mean, it could be something, but that's dangerous.
You know, I think at this point in his head, this is the only location left in the game. And that might be kind of because sometimes as runners we get stuck in these ideas that, all right, I've knocked off, like I've mentally checked off a whole area, and in this case it's like the purple chest leading down to the south of Grove region, all the way to Hype Cave. I think those areas are mentally in his mind not able to get to. Or he's gambling here and aiming to be like, I'm gonna find something.
I will say, I find when I'm racing seeds, when I've made some quote-unquote bad decisions, and I'm kind of stuck with that, I have to roll with them. Like, once you've made a decision, you have to continue to full commit, because if you backtrack, you know, sometimes the gamble pays off and you want to keep it. And if you hedge your bets, then you're doing nothing but always being behind. That might be his mindset as well.
Absolutely. I mean, okay, so a boon that could happen for him is, had our runners maybe check the pedestal, they might have found the ice rod is sitting there. That would also put him in a good position for doing what he's doing right now. So we have a couple of options based off of killing Landmo here. He might also get a sword upgrade, which would also be legitimate, but he ends up getting 300 rupees. And the blue pendant.
It's about the last thing I think you want to find at this point in time. Although, we haven't had a trip up to Zora at all. I think largely because we don't have the flippers, so it doesn't seem valuable at this point in time. There is the chance to go ahead and sequence break as well with the Moon Pearl. Interesting. It's been a while since I've seen us not go up to Zora for this long.
Well, I mean, generally, our runners have had a fair amount of items just to kind of get moving around the world. I do think it is interesting, though, with 3 items there to not at least be doing that versus clearing the pendant dungeon. But that's, I mean, sometimes you just got to roll with what you started. So let's see where BadmoonZ goes now. There's potential he's going to go ahead and just flute directly to 8 and do the fake flipper to get over to Zora.
I'm worried he's thinking that this is an Aghanim required seed in order to get into that East Death Mountain area. And looks like he just remembered something.
He did. He's going to Hype Cave, and he realizes that he knows how to get there. He was going to take the south portal to basically hammer in and go straight to Hype Cave. And now that it's hit him, this is going to be good for him. The unfortunate bit is that he didn't find the ice rod, which means the ice rod could still be in Jet's path.
If you're BadmoonZ at this point in time, do you worry that this kind of mental brain fart has hurt you to the point where you have to make bigger gambles in order to find that ice rod?
No, I think if you get to Hype Cave and you find all that value, you don't think about gambles, you think about completing dungeons as quickly as you can. There should be nothing else on your mind other than complete every dungeon. And it was just a map in the big chest in Thieves Town, so we don't have to worry about that. That's at least a good thing for BadmoonZ.
I am starting to get a little bit worried. I mean, we found a lot of other items, but we're still only at Fighter Sword. Master Sword is at least the minimum required to get to Ganon, and we have all of Ganon's tower, but we're getting to the point with Jet where as soon as he finds the ice rod, he's in go mode officially. And, you know, he won't be checking a ton of treasure chests at that point in time for the fighter, for anything but the Master Sword.
Yeah, I think he'll check every chest in his path until he gets the Master Sword. You really can't hurt Ganon without it. So he might gamble a little and maybe skip a few chests here and there, but overall, if it's the thing you need, you shouldn't stop.
Well, and here's second round of Hype Cave for BadmoonZ. He might be feeling a little bit bad after seeing everything here.
I could see some frustration in the movement there for a second. But this is fine. He's just going to utilize this to go and start clearing out dungeons as quickly as possible. We might even see him... Oh, I was going to say we might see him go and check Bombo's tablet. Not able to pick it up, but it's still information to have while you're in the area.
Absolutely. So I don't think we've seen Jet check the purple chest, have we? So this might be new knowledge here for BadmoonZ.
This is absolute new knowledge, and if this is the ice rod, that's going to be huge.
I would go so far as to say this is one of the least favorite item checks because it's so far out of the way. So nothing there, unfortunately, for BadmoonZ. That would have been a very big play.
Yeah, and it looks like BadmoonZ is going to do some of the cleanup work that Jet's already done. Palace of Darkness makes the most sense. It's a lot of items. You're going to be walking it anyway. So at this point, he's just got some catch-up work to do. And hopefully he then starts making some of the more unique plays.
What strikes me is we have a lot of, fetch quest items, for lack of a better term. We have the Ice Rod that's our Go Mode item, but Boots unlocks both at this point in time. King's Tomb and Bonk Rocks. Flippers unlocks most of the Zora area. Powder, the traditional fetch quest, Powder, Shovel. He's already turned in the Mushroom, but we're in kind of an interesting situation where that Ice Rod for Go Mode can be anywhere, and there's a lot of things that point in crazy directions.
We also shouldn't forget, I don't believe Jet's talked to the sick kid. And he got that bottle a while ago. It's probably not on his, it's possibly not going to be something on the front of his mind. May not be anything, but it is one more location that's pretty quick to check at some point.
That's our main Dark World access there, over there in Kakariko Village, so I can certainly see him routing in that eventually, but yeah, he's not had to do that for a while.
Oh, at this point, he has next to no reason to go over to Village of Outcasts. He's finished off Skullwoods, he's finished off Thieves Town, and he's, in his mind, done everything except for Hammer Pegs and the Purple Chest. Not a whole lot of value to heading to that part of the world anymore. But certainly possible. I think the next few plays here might be, if you're doing some digging, maybe going up to Tower of Hera would be a great thing to go do.
That would be good. Tower of Hera double unlocked, actually. We had no access to Tower of Hera until that Hype Cave, where we got both the hammer and the mirror, so that unlocked it from both directions.
Absolutely.
Also worth noting, as chat points out, our Pyramid Fairy is unlocked as well. We got both the 5 and the 6, so that's another 2 items that are now unlocked to Jet.
Absolutely, and will be unlocked by BadmoonZ shortly thereafter. So we actually are coming down to some really interesting decision points for our players. If Jet doesn't find the Ice Rod fast, and BadmoonZ does, we're right back into this race. Jet does find a single rupee in Misery Mire. There are 2 of those in the game. And we've already found the single arrow.
So the question just becomes, where is this Ice Rod? And I wish, and this is something that, people who are much smarter than me would, if they could work on at some point, it would be amazing. Some sort of spreadsheet to say, based on what we have and the items we've already located, where's the highest percentage chance that Ice Rod could be? And I get the feeling Turtle Rock might be it. There's a ton of opportunity in Turtle Rock if we make an early dip there. The problem is, if it's not there, then you've wasted a ton of time.
I would say, based on the fill algorithm, every location should have an equal chance of having the Ice Rod. So what you'd be looking for would be the most dense locations to optimize your time finding it. In other words, if we did the fill right, that spreadsheet shouldn't help you too much.
All right, so BadmoonZ getting ready to progress through his dark rooms in the Palace of Darkness. Jet working his way here through Misery Mire. We'll see what's on the big chest here closely. Not a ton of items so far that he's gotten. At least one. I know there's 2 total.
Absolutely. And gets his second item, got a total of 51 rupees hanging out in the dungeon. So later, if BadmoonZ were to go mode this dungeon, that would be a considerable time save. But Jet's going to go ahead and just finish it up. He has silver arrows. It kind of makes Vitreous a bit of a joke.
I mean, Jet, I think, is the person I learned machine gun strats from while watching Vitreous, so I'm completely confident in his ability to get through this with silvers.
Oh, absolutely. It's not even... It's a fight that, if you had silvers for Vitreous... I think the original programmers of the game knew this. That's why they locked the silver arrow upgrade behind having to complete this dungeon.
But do we really care about what the original programmers cared about in this game? Nah.
Perhaps a little bit. I like some of their ideas. So BadmoonZ gets his first bottle. He's also going to probably just immediately mirror out and go into Eastern, which would be good for him if he remembers then to go check the Pyramid Fairy and the Sick Kid. Because he also has the exact same knowledge that Jet has about the requirements for Misery Mire, as well as Turtle Rock. So at this point, weirdly, whoever finds the ice rod first, I think is going to have the advantage. I say weirdly, but that's how most games are.
I mean, it's true. And as weird as it is, it's the ice rod. I mean, when you think about all the items in this game that could possibly troll you in so many possible ways, the ice rod is, I think, the pinnacle of possibility.
Although, I'm not going to lie, if I was in the position that our runners are in, and you know you need Ice Rod, like you've realized and recognized that that's the item you need to finish this game, my next play is Turtle Rock. I'm not going to go scouring the entire world looking for the one item.
I mean, 6 item, it is, I hope I've got my math right, 6 items in Turtle Rock, so it is kind of a pretty dense chest location, and if you get it, man, you're just on the path already, and you go.
Yep. Well, it's do you want to clear the entire world looking for one item where it could be in the last place you look, or do you want to look in the last place you'd look and feel okay that you know, kind of like, I know it's not there, so I'm alright just collecting every location. The only downside is your potential to have to redo Turtle Rock twice, which itself as a dungeon is not very fun to be going through.
That's fair. Would you do, and in this case, I feel I would do Tower of Hera first, just because it's that extra chance, and you have to do that Crystal Dungeon first anyway.
Absolutely. Tower of Hera, you generally check all the locations. If it were something in the basement, I don't know. Because every single location you're checking that takes time, if it is in Turtle Rock, is just, are you wasting time? And our runners, still to this point, 1 hour in, need a better sword to finish the game. Let's see what BadmoonZ does with his information. He goes off to Mire. Interesting. And at least as a boon, currently, Jet is also checking Desert Palace. We'll see if Jet goes all the way to kill Landmo for that one item. So that'll kind of get some time back for BadmoonZ from his earlier missing of Hype Cave.
Doesn't look like he does. Looks like he's exiting out, actually.
Gonna go check Checkerboard Cave, but then he might potentially go back and finish the dungeon, although he might view that as a low-value play compared to other options he has coming up to him.
And that would actually mean that if BadmoonZ did go ahead and clear it, so he has one pendant over Jet at this point in time. So if that ice rod is in the trolley location that is the pedestal, BadmoonZ would actually have a bit of an advantage at this point.
Yeah, not the hugest, but definitely an advantage nonetheless. One of the things about Desert Palace, especially with the items they have, it's incredibly fast to get back to and clear out Landmo, compared to other dungeons that are pendants at this time. Although that's another statement. If you know you only have one item left to go, and that one item could be on the pedestal, it's probably worth the time to check it.
Particularly when you've had the book since the escape process. I'm a little bit surprised we haven't had a ped check up to this point in time. Granted, the pedestal is only a 5% requirement or so at any point in time, so I could see them avoiding it. And another single rupee from the sick kid. Man, he's the worst tipper ever.
Yep, well he found both green rupees. They can form together to form 2 rupees.
That's an important combination there, isn't it?
Absolutely. It looks like Jet's probably going to go to Tower of Hera. Good point is that you have to win the game. If you can complete a crystal dungeon, do it. If it's a crystal dungeon that you're probably going to be checking all the locations in anyway, even better.
Yeah,
the question.
I was a little concerned. I was wondering if Jet would actually check Spike Cave here, but it looks like he's going straight up to Tower of Hera.
Spike Cave is kind of a terminal location. He would probably check it afterwards, on his way out of Hera, if he's going to do it at all. It looks like we have another bottle hanging out on Ether. So we found 3 of the 4 bottles so far. And it looks like BadmoonZ is going to go in for his Vitreous boss kill.
Yeah, it looks. I mean, he's certainly set up and equipped for it. I don't anticipate any problems for BadmoonZ at this point in time.
And one of the 2 Hera items was the Piece of Heart, and Jet immediately mirrors to get back to the beginning so that he can go up and take care of Moldorm.
It's odd thinking that we're still going to be using likely hammer strats on Moldorm at an hour 3 in.
Even if I have the Tempered Sword, I sometimes still use the hammer strats.
Is that just out of habit, or what?
I think it's easier to maneuver around sometimes. You just get, it's a bit of habit. Oh, finding a small key, not the first thing you want to do in this dungeon, and then finding a dungeon item. It's become a 50-50 whether or not Jet's going to have an item in the basement of Hera.
That's not a very favorable coin flip that I want to take at that point in time, but I think he's going to have to do it one way or the other.
Absolutely. He might actually gamble on not checking it, although I think if you're here, I know it's 20-some seconds to do it, which is a huge amount of time, but as harsh as this seed has been, it's probably just worth wasting the time. Like, they haven't been really getting a whole lot of easy stuff going on. They got Hype Cave, and then they're still doing everything with the Fighter Sword. BadmoonZ taking a hit from Vitreous there. Sometimes you gotta watch out for that lightning. Actually, all the time. You should watch out for it all the time.
Well, yeah, lightning's not good. Meanwhile, Jet makes quick work of Moldorm.
And gets the
And
second item.
that's lucky for Jet, I think.
Oh, absolutely. So he might either check the Spike Cave, or he might just do the play on Turtle Rock. Get it out of the way. Know if he should be searching the rest of the world or be done with the game. In fact, Turtle Rock is his last dungeon. This makes the most sense. I didn't even realize he was that far into this. This is exactly where he wants to go.
Yeah, it's a bit of a risk, but I think it's one worth taking if I was in Jet's shoes as well.
Yeah, so at this point, it looks like BadmoonZ is basically just a Tower of Hera behind, which is not a slow dungeon. And he's gonna get a potion, a smart idea, just in case, you never know.
I certainly support any runner who has the self-awareness enough that I might need a potion before I go somewhere.
Absolutely. So I think the way, if chat's already going through this on their mind, the way to have this be the trolliest seed on Earth is Ice Rod can be in Turtle Rock, and that's just fine. But the big key for Ganon's Tower is on the torch, and the boots are on the pedestal.
Oh, we can do better than that, chat. Come on, I have faith in your trolling abilities. We got to add a couple fetch quests to flippers behind the Zora ledge, etc. Come on, let's get to it.
Well, we don't want to, ruin our runners and make them think bad thoughts. It looks like BadmoonZ is opting to go the other way and either just entering Dark World from here, or just going to start with Turtle Rock.
That's a bold play, I think, especially when you consider that you might find the Ice Rod in Tower of Hera. So I don't know how I feel about this, actually.
Routing-wise, it's not terrible. I mean, he doesn't know this, but his opponent is essentially in here doing this, and after this, he just has to pop out and go into Tower of Hera and finish it up real quick. And it's a very quick go mode Hera. You go down the left side, get the big key, and then just go straight up to Moldorm. Might check a location, probably the main room, because still don't have a sword upgrade. And everyone in chat, we're going to need your thoughts and feelings for our poor runners who are probably gonna have to do Hammer Trinex, unless 2 sword upgrades show up inside of Turtle Rock.
And that's one of those pause menu bosses that not everyone has practiced as much as they really need to, because Hammer Trinex is not a... I mean, I'm not going to call it a fun fight at all. It's... In fact, it's slow. It's kind of difficult.
It's quite difficult, because the hammer hitbox is not the best, and you also want to avoid letting the ice head ice the floor on you. Because then things get really difficult when you're trying to do hammer strats if the floor is iced over in lots of places. Oh, Jet kind of getting knocked around here. Picking up that pokey key.
BadmoonZ using a Cane of Burna strats, using that wonderful opening weapon to his advantage. It's still useful.
Absolutely. And Mirrors out of Turtle Rock decides this isn't where I want to be. Probably has in the back of his head Tower of Hera, and is thinking, I should go over and do that. I don't want to waste my time in Turtle Rock yet. I think he was maybe hoping that it was in one of the early chests. Now, if Jet doesn't find the Ice Rod, which is entirely possible, BadmoonZ doing this and then not coming back to Turtle Rock for a little bit might be an advantage.
It'll be slight at this point in time. It's at this point in time, if it's not in Turtle Rock for Jet to really be able to clear this out, it's gonna be a question of gambles at that point in time. Who makes the right gamble?
Absolutely. But certainly, this is becoming a great race that is basically the hunt for the ice rod.
I mean, really, when it comes down to it, isn't every seed just a hunt for the ice rod?
Absolutely. That's how Randomizer works. It's a hunt for the one item. The last item. But even then, we still have to consider our runners do not have a sword that they can effectively win the game with.
That, I think, would be among the worst things that can happen to these particular runners. Say they get the ice rod, they go through, and for some odd reason, there just isn't a sword. I mean, I can see someone gambling, possibly going up up Ganon's Tower, even up to Moldorb to the validation chest, and not finding a sword. I mean, what do you do at that point in time?
Well, you finish off Aghanim, and then you go start dipping the remaining dungeons.
I mean, that was a rhetorical question, because yes, that's all you can do, but I get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's worth noting, still no flippers, so these runners haven't gone into Ice Palace or Swamp Palace. Both dungeons do have quite a few items in there, so it's certainly worth noting our swords might be in that direction.
Alright, Jet's final checks. It's a moment of truth here. The last chest.
Oh my god! That was amazing. Ice Rod in the very last chest of the Laser Bridge puts Jet officially in, well, okay, he's not officially in true go mode, but
Super close to go mode. Hopefully BadmoonZ... I can see him doing the check here. Hopefully he just goes back in. It's his last crystal. Makes sense. Come on, BadmoonZ. Just go back in.
the worst part of it is I can absolutely see BadmoonZ not diving back into Turtle Rock until he's done everything else at this point.
Well, that's fair. It looks like he's making a play on this cave. So it now comes down to a sword, and there are 3 of them in the game. Now, all 3 of them could be in some awful places. One could be here in Spike Cave, and the other 2 could be in Pendant Dungeons. Alas, it's 5 rupees.
I mean, Pendant Dungeons are still absolutely a possibility at this point in time, but Jet actually having a very, very clean head fight and full Trinex fight, no ice on the floor. That's rare for Hammer Trinex.
No, that was a very well done Hammer Trinex. I'm sure Jet's practiced that one though. That's one that you if you do it that smoothly, you've put some time into it.
Absolutely, but sir, we are 7 crystals in. Jet will be on his way over to Ganon's Tower. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the randomizer community, I think you're already started here, but there's a little game we like to play here in the randomizer community. There are 22 treasure chests in Ganon's Tower. Any one of them could contain the big key to Ganon's Tower. 1 through 22. Get your guesses in chat. Vitor, my friend, what are you hoping to see?
Well, see, this is one of those awkward positions where I always hope that it's in the 2 chests on the right-hand side. That's my dream. I like them being in 1 or 2. That's me, but that doesn't actually help our runners because they need a sword still. And even if they find it early, they're gonna they should keep looking for a sword. So I'm gonna go with 2, but knowing that our runners are probably gonna look past and beyond.
I think that's fair, and this is one of those situations where just because oh, there's Boots, oh god.
Did you have a particular number yourself?
I always like to go with the fire bar room, which is if you go to this, starting off on this side and then heading over to the left is generally number 8.
Okay.
It's interesting to note just how many fetch quest items were here. So, the treasure chest game traditionally is like, okay, what can we do before we can just go mode everything? But we're looking at maybe not being in go mode even after all of this.
Absolutely. So 2 chests down. We got another 4 coming up here. 3, that's 4. 5 is the sword, so that's good enough. And 6 is nothing.
There goes all of our hopes and dreams of leaving here to go on a major Fest Quest hunt at this point in time, chat. I'm sorry.
Yep, at this point, it's whatever Jet gets in his way. I don't think he's going to search further for a tempered sword. And for BadmoonZ, it's all a matter of just going back up to Turtle Rock. Hopefully he doesn't end up trying to clear the whole rest of the game going there.
That's going to be a little bit rough. And, oh no, that's horrible. The catfish gave him flippers.
Oh goodness. So, already 7 chests in. There's the 8th chest. 50 rupees. 9th one's a small key. 10th one's a full heart. 11th one is an arrow upgrade. We know BadmoonZ isn't even going to find the boots.
Oh, this is really rough because this is one of those situations where BadmoonZ now has the flippers. By the way, Ice Palace and Swamp Palace are now completely unlocked to him. It's entirely possible he's going to be going there even before going back into Turtle Rock. Feels bad, man.
That's rather unfortunate. Our 12th chest didn't have anything terribly good for our Jet this time around. And BadmoonZ is swimming into Zora. Decides to give him a little kiss there. And 13th chest has another small key.
All right, we'll see. We're getting close to the rando room for Jet here, so named because it is the only. This room is really only checked in Randomizer. Nothing of value is really located here if you're doing NMG or even the vanilla game.
14th, I think. 15th. Am I off by 1? 16th? 17th?
I mean, this siege has been exceedingly kind to these runners. I would not be surprised to see a tile room here.
Absolutely. The unfortunate part for BadmoonZ here is that he actually dipped Turtle Rock, and had he just kept going, this would be basically the difference of a Hera dungeon. And a fast Hera dungeon.
Absolutely. It's really unfortunate for BadmoonZ. Just needed to keep going. Really, I don't want to say rip, but we're getting increasingly further and further unlikely at this point in time for BadmoonZ.
And there it is, in its vanilla spot.
Yep, he went ahead and cleared out 21, so the only treasure chest that was left was that tile room.
So number 19?
Yep, 19.
And Jet is on his way up to the top of the tower. I think he'll potentially open up all 4 chests at the top. If there is a tempered sword, you're going to be very happy. And chances are, after clearing out all of Ganon's tower, you still have a chance of finding a tempered sword up there.
Still a pretty solid likelihood, all things considered. Although, with all the treasures that are still left open in the overworld, I mean, you can't clear out that many treasure chests at 119 when you're already in Ganon's tower at this point in time. So, Jet doing very, very well. Going to have a very low completion rate compared to several runners.
Absolutely. Skipping out on 2 of the more intensive dungeons. the one that BadmoonZ is heading to right now, Swamp Palace. Unfortunately, he might only find a sword in here, because we already know where the other mail upgrade is, and everything else is... He might find a fetch quest. He could find powder, potentially, or the shovel.
I mean, I can see a bottle, maybe, but yeah, there's nothing really that BadmoonZ can find here that is going to help him in any capacity, unfortunately.
Jet doing a little ice skating with the Stelphos and a, I don't even know what they're called, horse heads? We'll go with that today.
I don't really know either, but 9.8 out of 10. Blame the Russian judges for not a perfect.
And Jet uses silver arrows on land mode 2. Nice and quick and clean. I think he might have taken one hit in that room, but no one's gonna do it. And your call is correct. He did end up finding a bottle hanging out in the first real chest of Swamp Palace. The first chest having a key is not that exciting.
I mean, it's expected unless we're in Key Sanity, and thank goodness we're not in Key Sanity anymore.
Absolutely. Jet doing a solid torches room here.
Yep, as expected. I don't know. I think he even has enough magic he can bypass even getting this full magic pot in this room. Yep.
Absolutely. Doesn't even have to wait for the door to close before going up the stairs. Otherwise, if you're not careful there, if you're not sure if you're going fast enough, you can despawn the entire upstairs of Ganon's tower, having that door shut as you're climbing the stairs, which is very, very bad. You'd have to re-climb the entire Ganon's tower after mirroring out.
I had no idea that was a possibility. So the more you know.
Another possible... Ganon's tower is just a treasure trove of amazing ways that you could ruin your game. There's a quadrant glitch that you can get from spinning against Moldorm here. Oh, looks like we did find one sword upgrade, so when BadmoonZ gets to Ganon's tower, if he does go right-hand side, he will certainly have the tempered sword. But there's a chance when you're spin attacking Moldorm, if you cross a quadrant, you can despawn the second half. Or I think you end up like going into a weird mode where you walk through this door and things get all messed up. But successfully, we got past that.
Thank goodness. Now I'm going to be super nervous about doing any sort of spin attacks on Moldorm.
Oh, you'll mostly be fine. You'll mostly be fine.
And we have our first Aghanim fight, and kind of a friendly setup here, starting out. Get a nice double.
Absolutely. And able to pick off one while getting a blue ball there, so we're at 2-1 right now. And looks like that was maybe just one. Both balls hit him, but I don't know if they hit him quick. No, it was a 2. Nice. So 2-1, 2-1.
Jet at 123 is on his way over to the Blue Pig. We're going to probably see a sub 130 from Jet, which is an amazing time.
Absolutely, and this is one of the more tough fights to do in the game. Luckily, he has silver arrows, although sometimes silver arrows with Master Sword is... It's just easier to do spin attacks sometimes, like in the silverless fight. Ganon laying some refrigerator knowledge on us. You were about to say?
Oh, I was going to say I've heard many runners say they would much rather do silverless tempered than Master Sword with silvers.
It's yeah, it's a different fight. Although BadmoonZ totally set up with the tempered sword here. Both sword upgrades in Swamp Palace. Jet here just has to be patient through this phase 2.
And with only one bottle, I don't think he even filled it up, so he's got to be a little bit patient, not take any Ganon hugs or hits from these fire bats.
I think he can take maybe 2 hits from the fire bats and still be okay, but a hug would be very bad for him right now. Oh, it looks like he missed that last spin. And missed that one too. Ganon being pretty nice about his where he's warping to in the room for these hits. If he ends up in the bottom right, it's very difficult to get a hit on him, and Jet makes it safely into phase 3. BadmoonZ checking out the 2 drown chests in Swamp Palace, finding the map and the compass hanging out next to each other. Ganon is 1 hit away from finishing phase 3 for Jet. Waterfall room for BadmoonZ has 20 rupees.
Ooh, missed the first one and does not get the torch glitch, although I'm sure Jet doesn't necessarily need them. Makes it a little bit longer in this Ganon fight.
Yeah, actually, you generally don't want to snag the torch glitch when you're doing silvers, because you can light both torches and catch Ganon in the center of the room, and then be able to combo 2 to 3 arrow hits on him. What Jet does get is next gets the Ganon kill in.
And GG Jet. You were here, Vitor?
Sometimes I'm there. And it looks like Jet has an official speed racing TV time of 1 hour, 26 minutes, 22 seconds.
Very well done. Right as BadmoonZ ends up killing Argus, and he sees that time. Well done, Jet. Moving on to 1-0. I'll say this much to everyone else while we're waiting on Jet to go ahead and join us here in channel. BadmoonZ is one of those runners that I do not want to see in the 0-1 rounds, because I'm also 0-1 and he terrifies me. So Jet is a great runner, but so is BadmoonZ.
BadmoonZ is a solid player. I think his one mistake in this particular run, the play that kind of messed it up, was just not continuing on the dive in Turtle Rock. That's all that it was.
It's really about commitment. Like, once you end up going a direction, you have to kind of full commit. If you halfway go into something, it's going to come back and bite you more times than not.
Okay. Well, we'll wait for Jet to get his link or invite to join us. Not entirely sure when that gets sent out, but I'm sure it gets sent out at some point.
I think it actually gets sent out at the beginning of the race. He just has to join at some point.
And BadmoonZ going off to go check some water locations over here. I think it's going to be when he realizes that it's time to go back into Turtle Rock, which could potentially be quite a bit of time if he's aiming to go through all of the overworld first and dungeons.
And joining us now is Jet082. Jet, sir, GG on your win.
Hey, GG. Real quick, I have to lead this message up for our man Vitor.
Well, don't forget to let it go because you actually need to show off.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to, there it is.
I was absolutely there. And play of the game. What do you think the play of the game was?
Turtle Rock.
Turtle Rock was very much the play of the game.
So I'm making my way. I'm like, let's just do some crystal dungeons, maybe get lucky and get Ice Rod. And as I'm like running out of things to check aside from Turtle Rock, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna gamble it because I'm running out of things to do. Without flippers, I was actually running pretty low. But then in the middle of Turtle Rock, I'm like, wait, there's maybe 5 or 6 items here. There's 11 things I skipped outside of the dungeon. This was like a 33% chance at that point, and I'm like, oh, this does not look good. It's in the last chest.
Absolutely, it was.
Oh. So I caught a little bit. I saw BadmoonZ in what's it called, Swamp. So I'm guessing the things I didn't check ended up giving you flippers. It looks like some swords.
So he was in Turtle Rock when you were in Turtle Rock.
Okay.
And he noped out after checking the upstairs chests.
Just the keys?
Just
or like the second floor as well, Mimic Cave.
No, he didn't go downstairs. He checked the upstairs chest and thought, no, I don't want to waste my time doing this, and noped out. He still had Tower of Hera left, so he went and did that. And since then, I believe he got flippers in Spike Cave. I believe it was.
Oh, that was going to be my next check after Turtle Rock, probably. No, or Fat Fairy.
Absolutely, like some good locations to pick up. And from the flippers, he decided to go do Swamp, which had both of the other swords. And
wow.
Now it's a matter of, I guess he gambled on Pod as well. It looks like he didn't do the back half. I thought that he did the back half, but I'm looking at it and it was kind of weird because he like just turned around and went straight for Helmasaur King.
That hype cave.
Was
hype
that
cave,
not the hypest hype cave you haven't seen in like a year?
That was ridiculous. You get like Hammer's first. I'm like, okay, that's good. I'm glad I went here first before Thieves. And then it's like, here's Bow, here's Mirror. I'm like, what do I even do with myself? Am I in go mode? And it was at that point I only needed Ice Rod. Like from that point forward, that was only 30 minutes in, and I was 1 item away from go mode since then.
Absolutely, and the best item to be away from go mode in.
I thought you fixed Ice Rod being in Turtle Rock. Come on, man.
I did fix it. Fixed it perfectly.
That's true.
Working as intended.
But that was certainly a good run. I 100% agree with this. It was actually, I didn't realize when you were going to Turtle Rock that was your last crystal. I thought you were going there a little bit sooner than that, but when I was looking at the tracker, I'm like, oh, this is his last crystal. This makes even more sense. You don't want to be stuck like tramping around the overworld when the item is in the dungeon.
Yeah, but you have no idea. I was gambling, and it was a hard call to make. Maybe I should have done Fat Fairy first, just because it would have been so many items, and then it would have decreased the chance it was outside. But if I had done Fat Fairy, I would have done Pyramid, I would have done Catfish. And from what Chad is saying, flippers were at Catfish.
That's where it was. My bad.
And that would just unlock more things. And I'm like, well, then I'm going to do Pendant Dungeons over checking Ice Rock. Last spot in Turtle Rock is just so bad.
It's one of those cases where you would rather do Turtle Rock twice and know that when you find the item and get to go do the Turtle Rock a second time, or just go there or do the whole overworld, essentially. That's the choice.
What I was thinking, yeah. It's like, okay, it's going to be... If you had to double dip it, it's what, another 5 minutes maybe? Because it's a longer dungeon to walk through. But
it is.
I just figure, okay, let me invest in this, just in case it is there, because there's a lot more time I could waste outside, especially without boots.
Absolutely, but you got boots.
Yeah, how about that? I bet chat was hoping for a big key on Torch at that point.
No, they would never do something like that. They thought the boots would be on the pedestal in that case.
Wow, what a seed.
It was a fast seed though. You're done in under
was.
an hour and a half.
Uncle's like, this is the worst seed ever. It wasn't too bad. It was not Aghanim required, no pedestal. It just had the trolley ice rod. Like, that was the only item that was trolley, honestly. Everything else was free.
Yeah, it was super free. Well, that, and I'm sure at some point you had to be a little concerned about the sword situation.
Yeah, oh yeah. I checked out Meyer, like the Meyer out the shed, and I only have fighter sword at the time. I could have went in, because technically it would just be dark rooms. But I'm like, I am not doing fighter sword Vitreous. I learned that one the hard way. Which is why I opted to leave and, check Hype Cave, which is, I'm glad I did.
Oh, absolutely. It was no one is about the prospect of fighter sword, dark rooms, and Vitreous without a bow. That's just
no hammer either at that point for me.
Yeah, it was like you could technically beat this, and I've seen seeds where that is the gate. Like, that's kind of the collection of items you have, and your next progression item is on Vitreous. Good luck.
Oh
I mean, other than you would be able to do you would have the lamp, and you did have the lamp available. But like, I've seen that be the choke point of a seed, and you're like, Let me just roll another one.
Meyer or Thieves? I'd rather do Thieves. I mean, more items, and it's just easier dungeon with fighter sword.
Oh, absolutely. And yet, well, didn't have the hammer yet, but it's like you miss out on one location.
Right, which is why I didn't go into it right away and went the Hype Cave instead. Given Flute, it's like, it's easy to get back to Thieves. That's why I decided to skip it at that point. If I had taken, like, for example, the Pyramid portal by killing Aghanim, I have the plan of doing Thieves while you're there, regardless of your hammer situation. Just because it's so long to get back to that.
Absolutely. And just to note to everyone, BadmoonZ back in Turtle Rock. It's going to be very happy. Actually going to get pretty lucky in that is going to get down there, get that ice rod, finish it up, and then be able to do Ganon's Tower with the Tempered Sword. Hopefully just kind of, I don't know. The Big Key's in not the greatest place.
It's vanilla.
It's vanilla, which, depending on, like, if you're... you went right side first, but if you had gone left side first, you probably would have gone straight on to past Ice Armos.
If I had gone left, I was still looking for a sword at that point. I might have still hit the room on the right, just because it's a fast check.
Yeah, well, actually, in your case, had you gone left, you would have had to, because that's where the sword was, wasn't it?
Yep, it was on the right. So we'll see if he goes right, and then he picks up Butter Sword in that case.
That doesn't change much in the game.
Hey, one cycle, phase 1 and 2.
You can do that with Tempered. I believe in you.
You could, but it takes some practice, and I still can't quite spin off of the Trident.
It's a little bit of practice. You'll get it. I'm not consistent at it, but it's doable. So any final thoughts on this particular seed?
You got your
ice rod. That's stupid ice rod.
You got your blue cane right at the start. You were hoping for blue cane hype.
I have not seen a blue cane start since I've been watching and playing standard, which isn't too many. But I'm like, I sort of want to see a blue cane opening, and maybe if I put it in my, name, it'll happen, and it happened. And I did use blue cane on the wrap because you gotta. Forget that we got sword in the middle. No, blue cane. It's intended.
Finished it up, and you got bombs early too, which made kind of escape. Just go through this,
Yeah, it was basically safe, nice and safe.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jet. We're gonna go ahead and keep commentating BadmoonZ on his final journey through the rest of, or at least the frustration when he gets to the laser bridge. We're definitely gonna get to see that, but we'll get him all the way to the end of this. I know he's gonna be able to finish this in time. He's an excellent player, and just knowing how to finish it's gonna be important. Again,
he's
thank
still
you,
gonna
Jet.
finish with a really fast time.
Oh, absolutely. This is one of those. The play was made, and it was going to Turtle Rock early.
And the whole time I'm thinking, like, what if he went elsewhere, like maybe Catfish or Pyramid Fairy, and that's where Ice Rider was. It was a gamble the whole time. It just this is how it turned out. Thank you guys for commentating. I do want to say, chat, give these guys a follow. I mean, you know, they play rando, they develop. Vitor is our developer. Gotta watch some of that. Give my opponent a follow when you can.
And definitely give
And
Jet
our
a follow.
tracker. Our tracker.
Draco Falcone doing us good work here, keeping you guys up to date on everything, and Feasel and Speed Gaming Group, some amazing stuff. But again, thank you, Jet.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Certainly. All right, so BadmoonZ in the roller pin room here, working his way towards the end.
I'm a little bit curious exactly how many frustration slashes we're going to see out of BadmoonZ once we get to that final. And it's not even just on Laser Bridge; it's the last treasure chest on Laser Bridge.
Well, it depends on the order that BadmoonZ does it. Given that he has the riot shield there, he'll probably do it in that order. But some people might opt to go to the bottom and bomb the door and then work their way up. I don't think he's the type of player that would do that at all. But it's always possible. If you know you have light world locations left in the game, you might bomb open the door because you're going to be using the mirror portal there, and you can go check light world locations and jump back into the dungeon. But yeah, he is going to find it last.
All right, everyone, get your guesses in.
I think it's going to take it in stride. He's just going to go do it.
I will say that red beetle there is among the most ingenious things done. Oh, a bomb! Yes.
In stride, there was no slashes.
I don't know if you can call that in stride, but we'll go with it. All right, so he's working his way through here. This has just been an absolutely fun seed. I think it's one of those seeds that I personally dream about at night, just because everything seems to fall into place.
Oh, absolutely. High quality. It's actually been a joy to watch. I think the one thing that, you know, that got our runners, and the thing it makes the most sense that it got our runners, was just that ice rod, which, I mean, this has happened a few times in the tournament. If you're down to one item that you're looking for, you might as well look for it in the dungeon where it's required. At least get that out of the way so that it's not driving you around the whole rest of the game looking for it.
I tend to agree. I mean, not that my routing is anything to write home about, but if you do the Crystal Dungeon, go ahead and do it, and maybe you'll find what you're looking for on the way. But, I mean, the Ice Rod play was certainly something, and then I gotta say, Jet getting early into the Hype Cave, just normally in his routing decisions, you know, that wouldn't necessarily be the play of the game. Just the value from that Hype Cave by itself was enough. The longer BadmoonZ avoided it, the more of a lead Jet got.
Yep, and essentially put him about a Tower of Hera behind, and then the play where if BadmoonZ would have kept going through Turtle Rock, I think it would have still just been the Tower of Hera behind, because they both would have basically done all of Gamma's Tower until they got the Master Sword. And we know where all the sword upgrades are now.
Yeah, it's really interesting that this seed had, I mean, if you think about it, Mushroom was really our only fetch quest. Bottles were late, powder, boots, flippers really weren't even required in this seed, as Jet showed us. So, I mean, how many things that entire swaths of the game that we could completely ignore? That's rare in a rando seed. Usually there's something that you have to get somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, everything was in a few key locations, and unfortunately Turtle Rock was one of those. But we'll see if BadmoonZ... Now, the best thing BadmoonZ can do, legitimately the best thing BadmoonZ can do, is after getting his Butter Sword, continuing on to Armos. That would be ideal. That would be actually the biggest time save. And in fact, I think that for if BadmoonZ had come in here and done that the first time, like that might have made up the Tower of Hera time that Jet would have been searching the whole left side for.
It could. I mean, absolutely, it could. I don't know if that's kind of an awkward enough play. It could work. I just don't know if he would have done it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens here. If we keep going, we'll definitely go through the portal and get the key. But then it's a question of, do we mirror? And hasn't gotten the mirror out yet. Might be continuing on. And never mind.
It's all right. Runners tend to make liars out of every single one of us.
Well, that's fine. I think I only know 2 people who would continue on to the very end.
Well, that collapsible bridge room is just kind of a pain, isn't it?
You have half magic and you have both the cape and the blue cane. It's not really a problem. But there is a way to do it without even either of those items. Just walking. You don't have to dash or anything.
Well, that makes me feel really confident about my skills.
It's not the easiest, but you have to know the timing. And we find out just now that the stun prize was the single rupee.
That really was the first time we've stunned an enemy the entire game, isn't it?
I think it's the first time we've stunned and killed it, yeah. That room is about the only room in the entire game that if I haven't gone out of my way to notice what the stun prize is, I make sure to make note of it there.
That's one of those things that I check early in the game, just because if it's for example, a fairy, then I don't stock up on a lot of safeties in terms of models, just because, hey, I can stun an enemy anytime I get a fairy.
Absolutely. Or it could be 20 rupees, which is excellent in the early game if you need to farm up some cash. Single hearts is good to know, just like fairies. Not as effective, but still effective. Like if you know you're in a room with 5 enemies and you can stun them all and get fairies out of each one of them, that's usually good. Early game bombs is also excellent to know if you get a stun item. Speaking of which, BadmoonZ is dropping some bombs all over the place.
You get the feeling that he might be a little bit frustrated.
No. I mean, given this, I still see, sub 2 hours on this. It is one of those. The big difference is he checked basically everywhere else in the game except for Ice Palace. In fact, I'm struggling to think of any place he didn't check that wasn't Ice Palace.
Yeah, I think his collection rate is going to be significantly higher than Jet's. And, it's still a good time for that collection rate that he's going to have.
Absolutely. Might be picking up the arrows here. Oh. I mean, if you're going through there, you might as well pick them up. You can never have too many arrows unless you're full.
See, and he avoids that 10 arrow drop too. He just hates arrows, probably.
It could be the case. Or his goal is just to get to the end of this as quickly as possible.
And chat will be happy. Bob survives another day from both of our runners.
Absolutely. Alright, so I don't think BadmoonZ checks the other chest after getting the big key. Yeah. He has no use for anything else.
Absolutely not. I mean, he already has Butter Sword, and he knows where the red mail is. Anything else he might find, he knows is going to be worthless, so might as well dip out. Go ahead and go now. Jet had a pretty legitimate reason to check. He was still only fighting with Master Sword.
Absolutely. Alright. Doing some relatively decent work here with the mimics and getting some arrows. Ending currently at 1,400 rupees. That is... whole lot of rupees to have, and even bought a potion and the Zora item.
I think we found all of the 300 pack of rupees plus everything else that happened.
I think there's something like 4 or 5 of them in the game, maybe 5.
My goodness.
Just a heap and help load of rupees.
I will say having all those rupees is definitely helpful in other game modes. For example, retro mode, which I've been playing quite a bit of. It's quite fun.
It certainly is a different take on how one can play this game. It's a lot of fun to get it together and put it out there as an option, especially the new take any's and shops. I think that's one of the coolest things that we're going to take advantage of in the future.
Just the tech that you guys can build into the back end of this has really kept this game fresh. I know it's 25 years old, and Rando is, you know, I've only been a part of the community for about a year now. It's just absolutely amazing how you can keep everyone coming back, and it's really a testament how much this community has grown based on what you and the other developers have put together. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Vitor.
Oh, sure thing. No worries. Just keep playing. Everyone play and have fun. All right, BadmoonZ finishes up Landmo 2 there. That is such a strange fight when you're doing it with silvers, mainly because that Medusa head shoots at just the worst times. And I don't know if the programmer that put that in there knew this or realized this, but it's just like for speedrunning, it's always at the exact time that you want to be somewhere else doing something else.
If it wasn't planned that way, it's definitely a happy accident that was uncovered in testing and said, no, keep it, it's amazing. Which we all hate, but, you know.
Alright, BadmoonZ has a little low on magic, so gonna have to pick up the pot up here. Should take them long enough that they don't have to worry about the despawn. It's one of those things, every random runner, because it's... You probably didn't play the game as much as a kid to ever have it happen to you. In Rando, you play enough of these that at some point, it's kind of your rite of passage, you will despawn the top of Ganon's tower, and you will never, ever, ever do it again.
I'll be honest, I don't know if I ever did as a kid, but I can't say I was technically a speedrunner and was terribly concerned with trying to get through that room as fast as I could. So, it's possible that I dodged it as a kid.
I don't know if they fixed it in, like, the American release. I honestly don't know. I'd have to look it up. But I know in the JP 1.0 ROM, it is very much something that can happen. Alright. BadmoonZ making excellently quick work with that butter sword on Moldorm 2, heading up into the Aghanim fight. And I think this is going to go relatively well.
Yeah, I mean, Jet had some pretty good setups here, and I think BadmoonZ gets the same setups. He gets the triple to start.
Absolutely. Let's hope all 3 of those counted. And I think... Look at that. If he just lands one more and it knocks out Aghanim, this is going to be great. He got the triple, the double, and then the single. Could not do that better.
Absolutely not. So BadmoonZ, when you go back and watch the VOD, just know your Aga kill was cleaner than Jet's. So, GG. All right. BadmoonZ is about as equipped as you can hope to be getting ready for this Ganon fight. Butter swords, silvers, blue mail over red, but, you know, all pretty much the same. This is going to be a pretty quick Ganon fight.
I think Evern has an extra blue potion hiding in the wings, if necessary. But we're already through phase 1. And in a second, we're getting some extra slashes in there. Now into phase 2, and this should go by just as quick. I think we're gonna cape it. And yeah, he's just gonna wail on Ganon there. We're done with phase 2. Phase 3, already have one of the floors down. About the fastest you can do this fight. And prepping for laying some silvers into Ganon. I expect I expect a double. I hope for a triple in here somewhere.
I mean, if so, that would make for about the fastest Aga Ganon combination that I've ever seen, because that was a very, very fast Aga fight regardless.
Let's get in a single on the first one. Let's see if he does the torches and... Ooh, Ganon's just a little bit high. And I think... No, he's going to only get a single here as well. Yep. Looks like he's going to get 4 singles. This is fine. The biggest thing is you want to let Ganon come a little bit further down before you do that so that he's close to you, because he only has a short window that you can slash him when you catch him in the middle of the room.
And there's BadmoonZ. Complete.
Yep. Wait for him to walk through that door there, and everything will be happy. It was a Speed Racing TV official time of 1 hour, 55 minutes, and 18 seconds.
A GG to BadmoonZ. Still an amazing time, all things considered. Whenever you have 2 runners do sub 2, it's just a great, great seed.
Absolutely. And BadmoonZ's an excellent runner. I don't think this initial loss is going to be too detrimental to their velocity in the rest of this tournament. I know that this is someone that everyone's going to want to watch out for. It's in the early game, you track against some people that just... It's like if you face off against the big name people that you know are going to be in the top 32 kind of thing. And Jet is easily one of those runners historically in the tournaments as well.
All right, and joining us now is BadmoonZ. GG, sir.
GG. Hi, guys.
GG. So the big choice there, the going into Turtle Rock and then leaving.
You know, so there was a minor mistake that really set everything off into a major mistake here, which was I waited forever to do Hype Cave, and then everything was there.
Hype Cave, the choice to skip that basically put you a Light World dungeon behind in time. Like that was really all that it cost you.
Yeah, and I was doing silly stuff like purple chest before I went there. But anyway, I got it, and then I was overwhelmed. I'm like, wow, I can do everything. So I started just clearing dungeons. I'm like, I was really worried about doing Fighter Sword Vitreous and Fighter Sword Trinex.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll just clear till I get at the big key. Maybe I'll find the sword. If I get there, I'll do it with Fighter Sword. I didn't realize I didn't have the ice rod until like halfway through Turtle Rock, which is when I turned around and left.
Oh, see, I thought you were making the play, and it would have been a great play to make, to just keep rolling to the end of the dungeon, because I think the thought is you don't really want to be searching the whole overworld for that one item, but I mean, in the end, you got to the end and you did it in under 2 hours, and that's still, given where the ice rod was, a huge feat.
Yeah, I can only complain so much, but definitely GG to Jet. Like, you got sub 130, so wow.
Yeah, he basically made the play of, I'm gonna spend 5 minutes maybe redoing Turtle Rock, but I'm gonna check it first for the ice rod before going any further into the game. It's a huge choice to do that play, because that is one of the most time-consuming dungeons to do it in.
I think I was mostly just caught up on, man, I left chests in Pod, I left the chest in Mire. It could be anywhere now.
Yeah, we were a little bit confused until we realized that you did leave a chest or some chests in some other areas. We were like, oh, that's a thing that he has to go back and check, and we knew where you needed to go, and just going back and checking those other locations, it was much, much closer than the final time indicated.
The other thing, too, is when I went into Swamp and I got one sword and then another sword, like, at that moment, I'm like, okay, I might still have a chance here if all of the swords are in Swamp. And then, there's the gift in Ganon's Tower.
Absolutely, that would have been we were hoping that the swords or the ice rod was going to be your easy way back into the game, and turns out the ice rod was the one that really did the most damage, which is unfortunate. But I know that you're going to be bringing a lot to this tournament. You're a very strong player, and definitely people are going to have to watch out for you in the next coming rounds of Swiss.
Thank you. I knew playing against Jet was going to be really tough to come away with a win, and I'm glad that I at least kept it competitive for a little bit there.
Oh, absolutely.
I will say I'm also 0-1, and I have no desire to face you because you will mop the floor with me. So take that for what it is, BadmoonZ.
Just hide the ice rod somewhere.
All right. Well, thank you so much, BadmoonZ. It's been a pleasure having you on. Let your credits roll all the way out, but thank you again. Everyone that's currently watching, I believe we still have more stuff going on tonight. There is 12 minutes ago started the Centroid versus Hazu Kitty race on Speed Gaming 3, and as well on ALTTPR. I can speak. Randomizer 2, you have Jet082 versus Lord of the Synth. That's a great name. An hour later at 10 p.m. Eastern, or EDT, which is 45 minutes from now, you have Hitaka versus Evil Sparky on Speed Gaming. And then for you Night Owls, it looks like we have a 2 a.m. match with Phantom Ryu versus Ace Zero on Speed Gaming. And then we'll start it all up tomorrow with even more games and matches. So make sure you go around and check those out if you're if you haven't quite got your fix for Randomizer in this tournament. We also have another 6 weeks of Swiss ahead of us. So don't be worried about tonight being, where we are. But we have more races tonight and just a whole bunch more races coming up.
I mean, we're not even quite through with the first round. 250-ish races down, and oh my God, so many more to go. There are more than 1,000 races to go. If you like Rando, this is a good time to be alive.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you again, BadmoonZ. Thank you, Jet. Thank you, Feasel. Thank you, Draco Falcone, for tracking. Thank you, Vitasia, for commentating with me. I've been VTorp. Do you have anything else you'd like to say, Vitasia?
Absolutely not. I'm just sitting here thankful to be a part of this. This was an amazing race, and it's always a pleasure to get a chance to talk to you, VTorp, to pick your brain, to see what insights I can glean from you.
It's an empty attic. There's some cobwebs, maybe a shard of light through a cracked window. Yeah, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Thank you, everyone. We'll let the credits roll out, but thank you again.
Peace.